Hey everyone, it's Jeremy Osterberger. We're here at the Gulf Coast Industry Forum, hosted by the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, and I'm here with Mr. Ed Emmett. Ed is the fellow at Energy and Transportation at Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy. Ed, you're also affiliated with TxDOT.
I am. I have the honor and privilege of chairing the TxDOT Freight Advisory Committee.
Fantastic. So Ed, for our questions today, you're gonna know a few things about what I'm asking. So thank you for joining us. So Ed, you just got off the stage. You were moderating the supply chain panel. You know, a lot of things talked about there. Tell us about what stood out to you on that panel.
Well, of course, the panel was made up of representatives of ExxonMobil, Katoon Nazi, the Houston pilots, and Maersk. So it kind of covered carriers, shippers, and Houston pilots. You know, what stands out is supply chain is one of those things that affects everybody's daily life, but it's constantly changing. And so one of the key questions that we asked was, what keeps you up at night? What are the changes that are coming our way? And whether you're talking about new fuel sources because of environmental regulations, whether you're talking about geopolitics, things moving from China to Mexico, maybe to India, all those are constantly being addressed. But from the public's point of view, all they want to see is the product on the shelf. And how does it get there? Well, the panelists were talking about how it actually gets there and what has to be done now to make sure that those products are here in the future.
That's right. So Ed, let's dig into a little bit about the $142 billion plan for Texas infrastructure. I mean, Texas has seen tremendous in-migration from other states like California, really all over the country. That means more people here. Talk about that $142 billion plan, and what is that looking like? What will that shape up to be here over the next 10 years?
Well, it's going to be a multimodal plan. If you think about the interstate highway system is really what made our economy boom as much as it did. If we didn't have that, the efficient flow of goods would be much less. But the interstate highway system's old. Most of it was built in the 60s, maybe as late as the 70s, so it's all at least 50 years old. What do you replace it with? How do you upgrade it? And particularly when you're talking about now autonomous vehicles, new modes of transportation, new fuels, where do you put the new rail lines, for example? Sure. How do you upgrade the ports? Because the example that I give all the time is if a modest-sized container ship comes into Port Houston, maybe it's got 5,000 containers on it. Half of those are going to be going to Dallas-Fort Worth. That's 2,500 containers that are going to be on trucks. So 2,500 trucks going up I-45. We've got to invest in the future infrastructure. Otherwise, we're going to stagnate. We're not going to keep growing. We're also, the Freight Advisory Committee and TxDOT, looking at a new major highway going up through West Texas called Ports to Plains. It'll go from Corpus Christi in the valley and Laredo up into Colorado, up in that part of the world. We think about things like we know Port Houston, but what about Laredo? 16,000 trucks a day cross the border at Laredo, Texas. And those are all coming onto our infrastructure. US 59 here in the Houston area, it's got to be upgraded to interstate status all the way from Laredo all the way across the state. So there are a lot of things that have to be done.
How do we get there? You talked to me. Does that take federal input, other states? What are the stakeholders, and how do we achieve that?
Well, a lot of it will be federal dollars, Federal Highway Administration dollars, and a lot of it, as you mentioned, the $142 billion plan that TxDOT has in place. But there's got to be private investment because the railroads are privately owned. And what do we do to make the railroads more efficient, more functional? Eliminating grade crossings, for example, helps a lot. But then we also have the intercoastal waterway that people don't think about. Barge traffic is critical. We have places like Victoria, Texas, that's a major barge terminal, and people go, I didn't know Victoria was a port.
Right.
And now down there they're creating the Texas Logistics Center, which is kind of between Corpus and Houston, nice thing. And then we have to talk about the short line railroads, where you have a railroad that's serving an industrial park. And then finally, if you've driven, anywhere through Houston, every time you drive on I-10, there's a new tilt wall distribution center with hundreds of truck docks at it. All that has to be accommodated.
Well, Ed, certainly a great job today here at the Gulf Coast Industry Forum. We appreciate you spending a little time with BIC Magazine.
Glad to do it. Thank you very much.
Great seeing you.